And welcome to Shark Week here on the Dynasty Vipers Vipercast. That's right, we are all in on Shark Week. Well, at least I am. I can't explain about everybody else here, but I got the shirt going on here. Just finished watching Mako Mania. Now we're getting into our fantasy football mania here, right on the Dynasty Vipers Vipercast. And joining me in this endeavor, like they are each and every week, for whatever reason, they entertain me on crazy ideas like this. We have Major Caldwell, that's at Major X Photo, and Tara Roberts. It's always time. It's Tara time here on the Vipercast. How you all doing today?
Tara?
I am exhausted and sleepy. I will give you the best. Just at the end of the day, just know I gave you my best when this is all said and done. Also, I didn't tell you guys that my 3-year-old is a big shark fan. We watch shark videos every single night, which I know you like to go to bed, which I know you guys may be thinking, like, what kind of crazy mom puts her kid to
Right.
sleep with shark videos, right? But he thinks they're cute, and I skip over the ones that are shark attacks. Like, we're just like watching
Isn't that
we're like
every
watching the
shark
good ones.
video is like a
No,
shark
there's
attack?
lots of just swimming in the water, and when they open their mouth, like you can interpret it as like a cute smile. So hey.
It explains so much why your kids always like jumping off of shit and jumping off of stuff and like it just being crazy because they look at shark videos all day.
I set my
You,
kids up for madness.
Right.
you know what? I'm right there with you. I mean, I had my kid's a little bit older there, but he's 9 years old, and he's right there with me watching Shark Week. He's been watching with me for the last couple of years. It's one of those traditions, so to speak. There, we come home from school, from hockey camp, from work, whatever that might be, and it's right to the Discovery Channel, and it's right on to Shark Week this week every single year. And he doesn't think the sharks are smiling, but there's some times where they show some of these shark bites, and there's the injuries to individuals. He kind of gives a little squirmish look to it, and luckily, it's earlier here than most places. I mean, we're out here on the West Coast, so it's not quite as late. But I don't mind sending him to bed after watching a good old-fashioned shark attack there. It's part of history there, man. It's not the sharks that are the bad guys. We're the ones coming into their space, man. We're coming into their home.
I
So,
agree with that.
and man, I'm fascinated by them, especially like the Makos out there on the California side of things. Major, one of my things here, I don't know if it's ever going to happen, but on my bucket list is I want to be stuck in a cage surrounded by great white sharks. I mean, that's what I want to do. I want to go. I'm not a free diver. That's not going to happen. I need something to kind of protect me. I'm not quite that crazy, but could you just imagine how intense that's going to be? That's like an auction draft type feeling right there when you're in a bidding process with somebody. That's that whole feel that adrenaline kind of kicks in there. That's on the bucket. That is something that has to happen before my time is up. Again, that might be the what leads to my time being up, but that's kind of where I'm trying to get to.
That's where I was going. That sounds like the dumbest idea I've ever heard in my life. Why would you want to go into a shark infested water where you watch videos of sharks eating everything except for the ones that Tara's watching? She watched Baby Shark where they're
You're
smiling and
just smiling.
dancing.
You're smiling. All the
Other than
sharks are
that,
smiling.
they're eating everything. You're like, hey, I kind of want to be next to that thing. It makes no sense to me. All my white friends out there, all the white homies, like y'all gotta relax with the adventure seeking. Like we gotta put a line somewhere, man. We can't be jumping in shark infested water and putting chum in the water and doing. Come on, guys. Let's use our heads, man.
It's always such an interesting breed of human beings that are the ones that are jumping in, isn't it? You watch these Shark Weeks, it's like, yeah, okay, the guy's like missing an arm, missing a leg. You're like, okay, I can see why you keep going back in. But
There's nothing else to lose.
I mean, I'm just fascinated by this whole thing. It just one of those things I got to do. I have to do before my time on this earth is done. I got to get into a cage surrounded by great whites. It's going to happen. I mean, it feels a lot safer than jumping out of a plane with a parachute or going bungee jumping or some of these other things that I've experienced in the past. So this doesn't really. You watch these people like jump off of cliffs on like a pedal bike, and also the chute opens up, or these paragliders or whatever. Like, you know what? I feel a little bit safer in the ocean there. I mean, I'm in a cage, so you got to feel a little bit protected there.
I'm gonna let you take that, Tara. I'm gonna let you take that one.
All of that sounds like none of my flavor. Things that I will not attempt. Right? We'll let Matt experience it.
Yeah, let me know if you survive. Well, that'd be a good story to tell.
So, in the spirit of Shark Week, we are going to do player comps here with sharks. And what it kind of means, we're going to kind of loosely interpret some of these shark facts and how it kind of corresponds with certain players for your fantasy rosters, because you know what, fantasy football has been done over and over and over again throughout the offseason. We're about to hit training camp. I think we're 47 days away, give or take, from the National Football League kicking off there. Let's not recycle the same old this week. Let's dive right into this, see what I did there. And Mako, you a believer on our fantasy takes this week. Oh, yeah, dad jokes, shark jokes, they are all coming out this week. And we are going to kick off the show with one of the more interesting sharks out there, and it is the nurse shark. Now, for people that don't know this, unlike the word nurse shark and how we're going to probably interpret this, nurse sharks don't exactly attack human beings unless you basically step on one of these things. And as for their name, it has nothing to do with the medical field. They get their name from basically that sucking motion that they do with their jaws there. And if you look at the Old English, the word seafloor shark is hurs, which is the Middle English for noose, which is basically means cat shark. So basically, it's a catfish that looks like that's basically a shark. That being said, that's not how we're going to interpret this, because I hear the word nurse and I think injuries. I think injuries are going to happen to this player, or this player is coming back from an injury. So when we break this all down, who are some of those players, Tara, that can outperform expectations, or a player looking to avoid injury because they're likely going to get hurt this season? Let's try and fend some people off these certain players so that you can basically choose either option here. So which way are you going to lean?
I am leaning in the positive direction, someone that is going to outperform expectations. And I'm going with Darnell Mooney here. Feeling positively about him coming off of a wildly disappointing season last year and a season-ending injury, unfortunately. He finished as wide receiver 72 in PPR, averaged less than 10 fantasy points per game. We were very hyped for him heading into 2022. He was a big target for a lot of people. He got pushed up in ADP, and it was an absolute disaster if you drafted Darnell Mooney, unfortunately. But I don't mind him coming off of that injury this season. Again, you know, he's back. He's at training camp. He is recovered. Everything sounds like he's good to go. And as long as he's healthy, he's going to be serving as the wide receiver 2 behind DJ Moore. He's earned that spot. He's ahead of Chase Claypool, and that is a perfect spot for him. There's nothing wrong with being the wide receiver 2 and playing off of the alpha wide receiver 1 in DJ Moore, because that's exactly what he did with Allen Robinson in 2021, and he thrived in that situation, finishing as a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 23 in PPR, over 1,000 yards. That is a perfect situation for him. So I love Darnell Mooney at a very low ADP to have a nice bounce back season. He's a fine late round target.
You will never get any complaints from me when it comes to Darnell Mooney. You know, he's one of my guys out there. And I kind of like this Bears offense this season. Yeah. I think Justin Fields is going to throw for 4,000 yards. And I think Chase Claypool is a nice, sneaky play. If you remember that game in which Claypool was actually healthy, he had like 5 receptions against the Packers before he got hurt again. I mean, basically Claypool could fall into this nurse shark category as well. Then you got DJ Moore. Then you got Cole Kmet. Then you've got that trio of running backs there in the Bears backfield, not to mention what Justin Fields can do with his leg. So I think Darnell Mooney is in a nice position there. According to PFF, he's one of the better deep ball route runners there in the league. I like this play here. Now, Major, give me another player there that is maybe on the medical exempt list here, or someone you think is going to either get hurt or stay healthy, perhaps.
Well, you know, if anyone's been following the show, you know that we are all like player friendly. We are players, people here. So we're never going to go on the side of people getting hurt. So I'm going to go with, I'm going to say it's one, but it's really 2 people. It's the quarterbacks over there in San Francisco. We don't know who's going which way and who's playing or who's what, but they're both injured. They're both coming back from injuries. It's a debate going on the whole season, all last year, what's going to happen. Talent will always find his way on the field. I'm kind of putting my money on Trey Lance, even though I really do like Brock Purdy. Kind of called that one early in his career. But, yeah, and Trey Lance is getting great reviews in the camp so far this year. Everyone's saying he's like changed his throwing motion. He looks a little bit more accurate. I think Brock, I don't know if he's got into camp yet. I know he was just getting back from an injury, so I don't know if he was really doing it. But the funny thing, you know, I think that, you know, the football guys always have a little sense of humor here. But, you know, Brock is coming off of that arm injury and he's better at throwing. Trey's coming off the ankle injury, he's better at running. So it's like the things that they're good at, they're both kind of like coming back from injuries on those things that they're good at. So I think whoever starts, I think this team is ready to contend for a Super Bowl. The defense is stout. You have all these receivers running around. You got one of the best running backs in the game. And then you have Eli Mitchell, too, is another great running back in the game. So you have a lot of weapons around there. So whoever plays, I think they're going to have a pretty good bounce back chance.
Yeah, reports earlier today, John Lynch, it sounds like Brock Purdy is ramping up. He's been cleared to start practicing and letting it rip. So things are going to get heated up there in San Francisco at 49ers camp here the next few weeks because it looks like Brock Purdy has been cleared. Now, we know San Francisco is not going to just throw him into camp and tell him to start letting it rip. They're going to bring him back slowly and get him back into it, acclimate him to game action as far as they're concerned. Because 49ers, whether you want to believe it or not, they've been telling us who their quarterback is going to be since before the injury. I mean, maybe they're trying to pull one off on everybody, but I think fantasy analysts and fans are trying to think that they're smarter than the 49ers brass when it comes to who their quarterback's going to be. Right now, they're saying it's Brock Purdy. Everyone else wants to believe it's Trey Lance. I'm going to go with Brock Purdy here because I think Big 12 quarterbacks have gotten a bad rap over the years. And we're going back even Patrick Mahomes and how he was disrespected throughout the draft process there as well. I'm looking at you, Chicago. Maybe that's one of those shows I should be doing for the What If series. What if the Chicago Bears would have drafted Patrick Mahomes? Now, for me, when we talk about injuries and how they're going to play out, Kyler Murray is this guy for me. J.K. Dobbins, Javonte Williams, they were also strong plays here that I considered. That said, Murray is that one guy that should return to action that is going to win you championships down the road, especially if you were one of those managers out there that punted the quarterback position earlier. Over Murray's career, he is averaging over 20 fantasy points per game. I think it's about 20.4 when it's all said and done. Only 4 other quarterbacks have done that throughout their careers, and that's the usual suspects there. Mahomes, Josh Allen, Deshaun Watson, and the recently paid Justin Herbert, who's now the richest man in the National Football League on a per-game basis, of course. Now, Murray, he has been a wide receiver 12 or better 4 consecutive seasons on that points per game basis and top 7 in each of the last 3 campaigns. Now, shout out to Robert Woods, who's also coming off an injury, joining the Texans squad there that has 357 vacated targets. No true number 1 wide receiver established. A rookie quarterback looking for some veteran help. Robert Woods is one of those guys could probably sneak up there and be a lot more valuable in fantasy than maybe we are giving him credit for. But for me, I'm going to go with Kyler Murray because he is a league winner. If you're one of those guys who drafted a Kirk Cousins because all the big name quarterbacks are gone and you came back with a Kyler Murray later on, I think that's a huge win for you right there. Now, heading over to our second shark. Hey, this is one of everyone's favorite sharks out there. It's always looking like it's smiling, right, Tara? It's the hammerhead shark, perhaps one of the weirdest of all the sharks. Now, hammerheads, they're going to hammer. They have been known to use their unique features to essentially ram stingrays there and pin them to the ocean floor. The hammerhead features are basically like the version of Gale Sayers, 18 inches of daylight. We are talking about 360 degrees of vision here with those eyes on either side of their head. Now, who's the one player that fantasy managers are looking up and looking down their lineups for, but yet he's standing there right in front of them? Maybe the most underrated player on your fantasy rosters. Tara, who's that player going to be?
It's going to be Rachaad White. He's not getting a lot of respect from people, and understandably so. When you look at the Bucs offense last year, it was absolutely horrible, and Rachaad White technically was absolutely horrible on the ground, averaging just 3.7 yards per attempt. But to be fair, he was not alone in those struggles. Leonard Fournette averaged 3.5 yards per carry. Tampa Bay as a whole averaged 3.4. So technically he was slightly better. But unfortunately, we can kind of attribute that to the Bucs offense as a whole and their offensive line really struggling with run blocking. But the thing about Rachaad White is that while the Tampa Bay offense is probably going to be terrible again, and we accept that, we're looking at Rachaad White as a 3-down back. Unless they sign one of these veteran running backs, and it doesn't look like they are going to, his competition is Keyshawn Vaughn. And then behind that, Chase Edmonds. So basically, Rashad White has no competition, really. He is a 3-down back with receiving upside, significant receiving upside. We're talking about a guy who, when you're looking at his stats from last year, it's kind of hard to kind of parse through them because the snap count was a little bit inconsistent there when he was splitting time with Leonard Fournette. But White saw as many as 9 targets in a game and typically saw 4 to 5 targets in games where he saw a snap count above 40%. So that type of work, using that as a baseline, that's a top 10 receptions at running back with giving him top 5 upside, really. So Rashad White is someone who could technically be a league winner. He's very underrated right now, going as a low-end RB2. He's someone that you can grab, and he can significantly pay off for your fantasy lineup.
Yeah, Dave Canellis there, the new offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, was just talking about how great Keyshawn Vaughn has looked. Now, we've been watching Keyshawn Vaughn for the last couple of years, and I'm sorry, Dave Canellis, I'm going to have to call BS on you. I think that's a bucket full of chum that you're trying to sell us right there.
No more
now, Major, you're going to head to the south here to Atlanta. Give me a player there that's sitting there right in front of us that a lot of us are missing out on.
No one's talking about him, and I'm really excited about Desmond Ridder. I think he's going to have a breakout season. We've seen the past few years, all the teams who are at the bottom, they're kind of like making their way up, and they do it with young talent. For example, the Cincinnati Bengals did it. Detroit's doing it. Jacksonville's doing it. Who else is out there? Like, there's a lot of teams who are like that team is trash, but wait, there's a lot of talent on that team. But last year, he started the last 4 games of the season. Each game he got better, with peaking at the very last game. He finished quarterback 11 that week. He had 224 yards passing and 2 TDs. And there's so much young talent on that team. I don't think he's even played with everyone at the same time. So you got Kyle Pitts at tight end. You got London at receiver. You got Robinson at running back. Remember back in the day when that was like a combination for like Super Bowls, when you used to have like the triplets out there in Dallas and you used to have the teams out there in San Francisco and stuff like that. You got to have the tight end. You got to have a receiver. You got to have a quarterback, and you got to have a running back. So look for Atlanta. They might not win a lot of games, but sometimes that's good for fantasy owners because you get garbage time, and garbage points in fantasy is like one of my favorite things. So I think people should pay more attention to Dez. I think he's a lot better than what people are giving him.
I mean, that's one of the hot names going around there right now. I mean, when you're looking at the Scott Fish Bowl there, which, by the way, thank you, Twitter, for crowning me the winner of our show. Who's got the best?
Was it the internet, or was it like just all the kids you have in your house? You made them like vote for you.
If they log on to the internet, that means it's the internet. I can't control what happens out there. Whatever's on the internet has to be true.
You're like, no food unless you vote for me. Like, that doesn't count.
IP addresses concentrated in Canada.
All at his house.
Like, why is it zoomed in this one spot?
Hey, 50% is 50%. That's why I'm going to stick with that one way or the other. But I'm going to stick with the Arizona Cardinals here because, for me, my hammerhead, not only because he's sitting there right in front of us and we're missing it completely, but he's that guy that's going to go out there and hammer those Stingrays. He's going to pin them down, and that's James Conner, who's an RB1 hiding in plain sight for everybody to see. You can look up and down the list of running back rankings. There isn't a single running back that provides the value that Conner does. He averaged 4.3 yards per carry last season, churned out 782 rushing yards on just 183 attempts. He also caught 46 passes, which was the second most in his career. Now, volume is key for Conner, and since there's no competition in Arizona, you mentioned that whole Rashad White thing and Keyshawn Vaughn being the guy. Unless you're really afraid of Keontae Ingram, which you probably shouldn't be, James Conner is the guy who's going to get all those running back touches. There are 400 touches available from last season. A new offensive coordinator there, Drew Pitzing, he's coming over from a Cleveland team in which they had 502 touches in their backfield in 2021. Heck, if Murray doesn't even play, Connor's even better than advertised here. 2021 and 2022, if you're looking at the stats without Kyler Murray, Conner was averaging 16.6 carries per game, 5.1 targets per game, and 21.6 fantasy points per game without Kyler Murray. So if you don't like my Kyler Murray as a nurse shark type thing there, being one of those guys who's going to come back in the season and win it to you, James Conner has to be the hammerhead because he's going to hammer home those fantasy championships for your fantasy rosters. It's really that simple. And I've only got one thing to say after the whole James Conner thing. You need to be a believer in this guy because the dude is just built different.
You know, I have one simple request, and that is to have sharks with frickin' laser beams attached to their heads. Now, evidently, my cycloptic colleague informs me that that can't be done. Can you remind me what I pay you people for? Honestly, throw me a bone here.
James Conner, there you go. The hammerhead shark that you have to have on all your fantasy rosters. And anytime you get the nodding head of approval from Tara, that is a victory in itself there. And even if it's sarcastic or she's got another point to be making, I'm going to pivot because we're going on to the next shark here before she can burst my James Conner bubble. Luckily, I've got the ability to do so. And the next shark up is going to be, where are we at here? I'm kind of getting lost here.
Can we get a pun counter? Can we get a pun counter on here? You're like killing it with the puns, man.
Well, we're going to the blue shark here, and I don't want anyone to be blue about their selection here, but the blue shark, it can be pretty much found anywhere in the world, from Norway to Chile. Pretty much, they are the waiver wire of sharks when we're talking about the shark kingdom. And if you're looking about this, they travel in groups just like the waiver wire. The waiver wire is just a group of players basically out there. The blue shark is not the most aggressive shark, and the waiver wire doesn't exactly have the most aggressive players out there, but there are fantasy options that have the ability to come in and clean up when you don't have the depth heading into those playoffs, especially in weeks 13 and 14 when you have players going on to bye. And you know right now, you got teams like the Buffalo Bills, the Chicago Bears, Las Vegas Raiders, Minnesota Vikings, New York Jets, Arizona Cardinals, Washington Commanders. They all have buys in weeks 13 and 14 when a lot of teams are going into those fantasy playoffs. Now, who are some of the players right now, Tara, that are going to be able to step up in good matchups to help you in those fantasy championships when maybe your studs are not available?
I think Major and I might have misinterpreted this shark in particular.
Just a bit.
Little bit. Because my dude is not coming off the waiver wire, but he does have good week 13 and 14 matchups. So that is the angle that I was going with, and it is Javonte Williams. Denver is playing Houston in week 13 and the Chargers in week 14. Both bottom 5 defensives last year against the run. Now, granted, they have both made, they've got clear improvements. Houston has obviously drafted to improve their run defenses, but it's unlikely that they'll make a significant jump to suddenly being a fantastic run defense. They'll probably still be going through some, growing pains. And probably games against Houston will still probably lean towards opponents being, heavy on the ground because you don't exactly need to light them up through the air to beat them. And then again, last year, the Chargers were a run funnel defense, and obviously they dealt with a lot of injuries, but I still think that it's a solid matchup as well. So if you're drafting and you're looking to kind of get that edge towards the end of the season, Javonte Williams, health could be something that improves over the course of the season. Maybe he's someone that you target in the drafts or target in trades throughout the season in order to kind of get that advantage at the end of the season.
Well, I'll give you a bit of a break with Javonte Williams because he has been getting drafted a little bit later in drafts based on that injury history. That injury is coming off of that knee injury there. Major.
Watch this. Like you gave her a break. I'm like, watch this. Go ahead.
No, I'm just going to let you go here and explain yourself.
Well, I mean, it's very complicated the way you worded these riddles here that we had to solve. But yeah, I'm going with Garrett Wilson. I was leaning on the fact, kind of what Tara just mentioned. I'm going who can actually help you in the playoffs, who's not, that known. He's still he has a lot of buzz around him and everything right now. But I think, Garrett Wilson will help you win your fantasy championship. He's playing Atlanta in week 13 and Houston week 14. Both defenses are, like Tara mentioned about Houston earlier, they're young, they're improving, but I think Garrett's going to have the advantage of having Aaron Rodgers on his team now. And Aaron Rodgers seemed like he's at a point in his career where he really doesn't care about anything too much. So he's just going to run and gun and rip the thing and throw it all over the field and do what he has to do. So I think this would be the breakout year for Wilson. And, during camp and everything, all the videos I'm seeing, all the reports I'm hearing, it seems like they already have a connection going, and Wilson looks like he had a really good offseason. He's ready to go. But last season he had 8 for 162 yards and 6 for 78 yards and no TDs in week 13 and 14 last year. This year I think is going to be different. He only had 4 TDs all of last season. Again, with Rodgers there, I think you're going to see his touchdown count go way up, and I think that's where you're going to see his biggest improvement is in the end zone.
Someone needs to get Aaron Rodgers like a big old plate of fish and chips with a bottle of tartar sauce, because the dude does not look healthy right now.
Vegan. He's a vegan, man. That's how
I
vegans
don't
look.
know. I don't know what he's being fed or what he started eating when he came out of the darkness, but he ain't been eating a whole lot of food. He looks like he could use a good fish meal here once in a while. Major, please never change. I mean, I love it when you give us bold takes like Garrett Wilson being a top receiver and stuff. It kind of kicks it back old school for us there. That being said, I got a question for you, because this is one that I find myself often debating when we talk about some of these young wide receivers in the game today. More particularly, Garrett Wilson versus Chris Olave. Who has the more? And even throw Drake London in there, because he's got himself a good young quarterback. If you believe that Desmond Ridder is that guy, which of these three wide receivers is the best dynasty asset, Kara?
I mean, I'd say Garrett Wilson first, and then Drake London, and then Olave. That's not,
Ooh.
which is tough for me to put Olave last.
Right,
But I mean,
right.
just they're right. I mean, they're close, so that's not a knock to Olave at all. Love him, but I think that's the way, from a dynasty perspective, I would order it.
I think I would move Olave up one, but like you said, to me they're pretty much that's the meme with the Spider-Mans all point at each other. I think that's pretty much what we're looking at here. I don't know. I like Olave just because I think Carr has a little chip on his shoulder. I think he's going to come out and kind of show people what's going on. So I'm gonna put Olave up there, but yeah, I really do like what's going on in Atlanta right now. So, like Tara said, it's pretty even.
And for me, I got Olave number one of the group, just because I think Carr is going to give you more sustainability 2-3 years down the road. I don't know if Rodgers is going to play after this season. And that is a concern for me, because then we're going back to Zach Wilson. And nobody wants to go to that unless the Jets have plan B or plan C or plan D lined up. Now, when I interpret this, which is the correct way to interpret it, because I wrote the show sheet, it's funny how I set things up for me to be the most successful here,
To
right?
be the winner, I love it.
I'm going to go with Romeo Doubs here. The fantasy schedule, weeks 14 through 16, it plays out nicely for Packers wide receivers. You could have thrown in even Jaden Reed here if you wanted. As the Packers, they face the Panthers, the Buccaneers, and the Giants, all of which allowed over 30 fantasy points on a per-game basis to opposing wide receivers a season ago. Both the Panthers, which were the fourth most, and the Buccaneers, the seventh most, were among the top 10 worst teams when it came to surrendering fantasy points. Now, early reports are positive in which Jordan Love and Dobbs have built some chemistry, and yet nobody is really attacking Romeo Doubs when it comes to their fantasy drafts. And I think that is something that needs to change right now, or else he's going to be one of those guys you're getting in the 17th, 18th round, or he's going to find himself on the waiver wire more often than not. I can't remember where I saw him in the Scott Fish Bowl, but I think it was around 19, round 20 in which he was being drafted. So if you're not in a deep league, if you're in a shallow league, he's going to be on the waiver wire. He's got those favorable matchups come down the backstretch. And I kind of do like Jordan Love a little bit here. I think he's going to be a lot better than being currently advertised. I think he's going to give the Packers some decent quarterback play. Now, Tara, as our resident Packer fan, how do you feel about Romeo Doubs and this Packers passing game?
Love Romeo Doubs. He should not be a waiver wire ad. He should be someone that you are targeting, and he should be someone who should not go undrafted in your fantasy league. You should be targeting him with a late round pick, because it's very possible he's one of my favorite sleeper picks, because it's very possible that he could actually be the target leader in that offense. Now, I do think that Christian Watson will be the higher fantasy scorer. But I kind of made this comparison somewhere else, I cannot remember. But this is not like a direct comparison, so I'm not saying that these players are like them. But when you think about Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson, and what they could be in this Packers offense. Kind of think about it like Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. Again, that is not a direct comp, so don't like go for me on that. But it's kind of the same theory of, Chris Godwin being that more frequent target, higher target, more of a volume guy. And then Mike Evans being kind of more of the touchdown magnet, the big play receiver. So I think that's the kind of role and relationship that could develop with Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson. So I love Romeo Doubs. You should be targeting. Do not let him go undrafted. He is a big sleeper for me.
Wait, where does Reed kind of factor in on this equation that you guys? Because I have him kind of over Dobbs. I don't know.
I wouldn't do it. That's not to say that I don't like him, but I think he is going to be specifically a slot receiver, and Romeo Doubs is going to be playing on the outside, a little bit more versatile. Should get some slot roles or slot play as well, but for the most part, I see Jaden Reed playing in the slot, and he could see a decent amount of targets in there. But again, I think the upside is just a lot higher with both Watson and Romeo Doubs.
Yeah, I was saying that Green Bay offense kind of like tailors to the slot receiver a little bit. That what's my man who was there? Who's the number one slot guy they just had there? The light eyes. What's his name?
It was it was Randall Cobb.
Randall
Was
Cobb.
our slot. That's why that.
I'm like Cobb.
That's
That's like the position there,
I mean, it's a usable position, but it hasn't been. That has not served as wide receiver one type of position. Now, granted, things will adjust a little bit with Aaron Rodgers not being there. We got some information that came out today in particular from training camp and the Packers organization talking about we'll see, a little bit more of Matt LaFleur's offense, and it'll shine a little bit more without Aaron Rodgers. So we'll get to see kind of like
nice.
The specifics around how that offense is supposed to flow. But I don't think that the slot, while it is a prominent role, it's not one that I think can exclusively function as a wide receiver one type of quantity.
I like that you used Chris Godwin and Mike Evans as your kind of comparable, because I was thinking similar but different. I was thinking more like the Seahawks duo there of DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Same kind of thing you're talking about. I just find that Tyler Lockett is so criminally underrated, and I think Romeo Doubs is going to get that same treatment. Christian Watson, like DK Metcalf, is going to be the big play guy. He's going to catch the touchdowns and this and stuff. But Tyler Lockett and Romeo Doubs are the guys who are going to do the dirty work. They're going to get the receptions. And in PPR, that's going to be a huge difference. If you look at the splits for Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, when they're both on the field at the same time, Tyler Lockett has been the superior wide receiver for quite some time. And that's something not a lot of people want to admit, because DK Metcalf is currently going to be drafted as a top 12 wide receiver. Meanwhile, Tyler Lockett is in that wide receiver 26 type range every single year, and every single year we're wrong. But we're going to keep on moving on here, talking about more Sharks and talking about more fantasy options. And next up for us, it is the Makos Shark here. Sleek, sexy, fast, powerful, everything you could possibly put into a shark there. They have the largest brain to body ratios of all the sharks. They have been extremely impressive critical reasoning and social skills. Now, with that in mind, who's the one player that you are aggressively attacking? Perhaps you're grabbing them a round or two earlier than their ADP to show your league mates how much smarter you are than they are.
For me, it is Elijah Moore. And this is, I'm happy to jump back into my Elijah Moore truther mode, because that's where I was previously and got knocked out of it thanks to the Jets just completely ruining that for us. But thankfully, they released him from their clutches, and he is now with the Cleveland Browns, and it sounds like he's thriving. It sounds like he has found the perfect home in Cleveland. It helps to have an organization that actually wants you, and from everything that we're hearing from OTAs and training camp, it has been nothing but, and granted, you have to take all of that information with a grain of salt, but it sounds like Elijah Moore is going to be an important part of their offense. And if we're looking for a, potential Deshaun Watson bounce back season, Elijah Moore serving as his wide receiver too could be a very good combination. This offense is going to be adjusting to push more pass volume to tailor more towards Deshaun Watson. And I think the ADP is going to start to creep up a little bit, because, Elijah Moore is going to be a very hot topic, and everybody's going to be wanting to go back to what we saw out of him for that rookie season, where he had that beautiful stretch of games, that 5 stretch of games where he was a legitimate top 25 wide receiver in average points per game. Very short sample size, but it was something special, and he could bounce back to that. So it's Elijah Moore. I'm loving drafting him.
What about you, Major? Who do you got?
You know I gotta go on my guy, Ramondre. I'm not gonna do it to y'all. Ramondre Stevenson, you know what I mean? Like, we're past the point, everyone was so happy to rain on my bromance with Dre. I was getting all kind of DMs, all my league mates, everyone's hitting me up like, oh, Uncle Lenny coming to town, like, oh, it's over for him and this and that, but it doesn't matter. Ramondre will always rise to the top. He's a man. No, but no one said anything about, other running backs coming in. It was just like the whole Uncle Lenny thing. But I think Dre has the skill set to finish the top 5 running back in this year's in the season. Only if Bill doesn't do what Bill does and try to do like a running back by committee or like whatever. Bill just needs to like relax and let my man eat, because he can catch the ball, he can run the ball, he can block, he can do pretty much whatever you want him to do. Let him be the focal point of this offense, and you will see him thrive. The dude is, I think he even slimmed down a little bit more this year, so the dude is coming in ready to be the man. So, I gotta, I'm always gonna shout out my dude Ramondre when I have a chance. So Ramondre's the guy.
It was just a matter of time before Ramondre Stevenson made it as one of the Sharks.
It was coming. It was coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? The Makos shark is probably my favorite shark of all the sharks out there, man. You get a shark here that's constantly reaching speeds of 22 miles per hour. They can top off at like 55 to 60 miles per hour. Their speed and power is on display every time they breach. I mean, these things are like hitting 20 feet in the air when they're out hunting there. And unlike most sharks, the Mako and the great white, they're considered warm-blooded. So they basically regulate their body temperature. So for me, I take all this into account, and I'm still jumping the shark on David Montgomery. I mean, whenever the Mako goes in for a kill, it's literally like the only shark that does not close its eyes. That's how accurate it is. It gets those big hook teeth into you because it doesn't shut its eyes. Watch all these other sharks. They basically, like your teenagers, they roll their eyes every time they go to bite something. Not the Mako. That eye is on you at all times. So I have an eye on David Montgomery. In half PPR, he is the RB30. RB30 in a draft of just running backs, that means he's like in the 3rd round. If you're just drafting running backs, you're drafting David Montgomery in the 3rd round. That is criminal right now. That is absolutely ridiculous. It ain't right. That means Montgomery is going at the end of the 5th round there. And you know what? I get it. Jahmyr Gibbs, I get the hype. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be a stud. I think both these backs are going to have a role in this Lions offense, and they're both going to perform it well. Now, both, like I said, Gibbs and Montgomery are going to be top 20 options at the running back position. RB20 right now, according to ADP, is Miles Sanders, which is about that ADP of 45, which is putting him early in the 4th. I have no problem jumping up and grabbing David Montgomery as early as the 4th round. Between DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams, and let's throw Justin Jackson into the equation too, Lions backs combined for 403 carries and 93 targets last season. That is a lot of opportunities. And we're looking at this offensive line. Montgomery, he's actually getting an upgrade in that department, which is great news for a running back who's been averaging 4 yards per carry. So you take this all into equation, and this Detroit Lions offense, I bet you this is a top 3 offensive line unit in the league today. You see what David Montgomery did behind that Bears line, which was not very good a season ago. David Montgomery is going to find a way to have a good season. Maybe not Jamal Williams type season, because Jahmyr Gibbs is going to have an absolute like 60, 70 catch season there for the Lions. That passing game is going to go to Gibbs. But David Montgomery, he's going to go in there and he's going to bang between the tackles. Major, I know you love it when I say it that way. And he's going to find a way to get into the end zone. Those carries are going to be there for David Montgomery. And RB30 right now, RB30. That is ridiculous. There's not 29 other running backs better than David Montgomery.
So this is why it's your favorite shark, because like you kiss your wife with your eyes open. That's how you get down.
Oh no, I'm loving. My eyes closed. It's very nice. Oh, it's romantic. Don't you worry about that. Now, when I eat, I don't take my eyes off anybody. No one's touching my food. You don't get built like this by letting other people take your food, right? That's how we roll here in the Donnelly household. There's like 10 to 12 kids here, man.
Doubles up.
every every adult and every children has to fend for themselves here. So that's how we roll. Now we go for one of my favorite sharks, maybe one of the other sharks that is maybe not as aggressive by nature, but in fact they're probably quite docile by shark standards, but they are smart and they are tactful. We're talking about this sand shark here. They're known to basically come up to the surface, gulp some air, and it's part of their hunting tactics. So with that in mind, who's that one player that is going to be out there and give you one good week? One bye-week replacement there. Remember Jonas Gray a few seasons back? Think Jonas Gray. And like I said, they don't blink like most teenagers there. They just roll their eyes. So that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about the sand shark, who gets a little bit of disrespect when it comes to the tiger shark, who we'll talk about a little bit later. So Tara, kick us off.
I gotta go with the RB3 in Philadelphia because it's not bad to be the RB3 when you're playing behind two guys that, are probably gonna miss quite a few games between them. So Kenneth Gainwell there, playing behind DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny. He can definitely get you a week here and there, maybe more than that. Things could turn out for Kenneth Gainwell to possibly have some lead back situations. And one thing to note regarding Kenneth Gainwell, a lot of times we look at him as that receiving back. He's the smaller guy. He's a pass catching back. He was a receiver, so people don't look at him as a typical 3-down back. But oddly enough, despite his size, Philadelphia did in fact use him as a goal line back and successfully done so. So when you're looking at Kenneth Gainwell, he is someone who is not going to profile as just a receiving guy. They could utilize him strongly on the ground as well. So it's Kenneth Gainwell. You can get some good weeks out of him behind those two running backs.
Speaking of running backs, Major, give us one who's got one big week ahead of him here in 2023.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Damian Harris. Everyone's talking about Cook having a breakout year and all that stuff out there in Buffalo, and I kind of felt like he's kind of under the radar. I don't see a lot of people talking about him on a Twitter sphere there, but he can easily break off a 100-yard game, one touchdown at any time. We've seen him bust off multiple long runs throughout his career out there in New England. 2021, he rushed for over 100 yards 5 times. So before he got hurt and everything there, he's one of my guys too. I know Tara's like looking all happy and stuff, but he was one of my guys. Ramondre just kind of moved him out the paint a little bit. But the key to him is got to time that injury. It's going to happen. I hate putting that on people, but for him, it seems like it's always going to happen, just like when. So if you can time it right, he can end up being I think he'll end up being a starting running back out there in Buffalo if he's not already. The dude, I think he's the most talented back they have in that offense right now. But, I think they're trying to push James Cook. But, let Harris get in the game. You're going to see some long runs, and it can happen at any time.
Well, for me, you get one good week, and that's it out of Kadarius Toney. Those hamstrings, sticking with the whole shark type thing here, those hamstrings are about as useful as gills out of water. That's exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about Kadarius Toney here. You have Patrick Mahomes, you're slinging the rock around there. There's always going to be big-time potential there each and every week to happen. Then again, we're still waiting on that performance from 2021. Remember November 10th, that contest against the Dallas Cowboys in which he got 10 of 13 targets for 189 yards. He hasn't even topped 75 yards in a single game since that date. Look, Tony, he's already hurt. He couldn't even get out of day one of camp uninjured. He literally had surgery on Tuesday to clean up some cartilage in the knee. I think that's the second surgery on that knee in this off season alone. Now, who knows how many games he's actually going to play in, but there will be a game where he's going to come in and light it up. You just have to try and figure out whether that's going to be on your bench or in your starting lineup. He's going to be one of those guys that has all the talent, all the skills. You just can't trust him, so he's going to be hard to get in your life. So you have to time it like Damian Harris. You have to time it around the injuries, or in Tony's case, when he's healthy, which is probably even more difficult of a challenge when we're looking at it. Now, the next shark up on the menu here is the blacktip shark. Usually they prefer salt water, but hey, they've been known to get as close to the shore there around river mouths there, bays. mangrove swamps. They don't mind a little bit of fresh water from time to time. You can find them anywhere, which means you can find them on your fantasy rosters, more than likely in that flex spot. So who is one of your favorite flex plays here entering 2023, Tara?
It's Deontay Johnson. We'll keep this short and sweet. He is a guy who literally was in the worst case scenario last season. No touchdowns. The result was wide receiver 30. Very disappointing. But he's being drafted as wide receiver 31. So kind of put that in perspective. Like, do the math there. He is being drafted in his literal worst case scenario. We know he is basically a guarantee for positive touchdown regression. We know he has top 10 upside. So you got a guy who is being drafted at his absolute baseline floor. Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. And you can draft him legitimately as your flex option. You don't have to draft him as your wide receiver 2, not even your wide receiver 3. So yeah, Deontay Johnson. Love it.
Hey, you know me, I'm all about value. Anytime I can get a wide receiver 1 at wide receiver 3 prices, count me in. Major, who do you got?
I'm gonna go with Christian Watson. I feel that people are kind of sleeping on him because they don't really know what's going on with Jordan Love, and he was just a touchdown hog, in the beginning of his career there. But I think he's more than just a red zone guy. He had 3 100-yard games last season. Now he's wide receiver 1. And it's 2 things. The first thing I like about him is, I don't know if you recall last year, they were like on the 1-yard line, and Rodgers was going to audible, was going to throw him a touchdown, and he didn't read the play right, and he ran the wrong route. I think that play makes people better. So I don't think he's ever going to do that again. I think he's going to take his playbook a little more serious. I think he worked a little bit harder this year because he knew he was going to come into the season as that number 1 guy. And the second thing I like is at the beginning of his career, he was injured a lot. And when you're injured, you usually don't work with the starting team. So he was doing a lot of work with Jordan Love at the beginning of his career when he was injured that whole the first half of the season and whatnot. So I think they probably built up a pretty good rapport there. So I like Jordan Love going to Christian Watson. So I think that's something to really watch. I know I know maybe another one of my hot takes or whatever, but Christian Watson, people not talking about him like he should. You can probably get him as your 3rd or 4th receiver. I think I just did that in the Scott Fishbowl. I have I think he's my 4th receiver. So he got down to the 5th, 6th round, some crazy stuff. I don't remember, but whatever.
Well, speaking of 4th and 5th receivers, when I'm looking at my guy, a couple seasons ago, my guy was Darnell Mooney. I may know ands, ifs, or buts about it. Last season, it was Christian Kirk. Well, they say if you love something, you let it go. And if it comes back to you, it is true love. And guess what? That player this season, it's Darnell Mooney all over again, baby. I've got him everywhere in my lineups. Now, I know you've all heard the narratives regarding this Bears lack of passing attack. I talked about earlier that I don't buy all that gibberish here. I think that this is going to be a very good Bears offense. I get it. DJ Moore, he's going to have to come in and be Justin Fields' version of A.J. Brown. Then Mooney, he's going to be the Devontae Smith to Jalen Hurts here. If you're going to pass the ball, it's going to help when you're throwing against teams like the Vikings and the Lions secondary twice a year. That's going to help you, even though the Lions secondary has improved. But the strength of schedule is still top 5 for the Bears receivers here in 2023. If Fields is already talking about 4,000-yard season, I'm in. I believe. Now, mostly because all this talk about Justin Fields having a big season, it fits my narrative, so I'm going to believe it a little bit more. Now, with that in mind, Moore, he's going to come in there. He's going to open things up for Mooney in this offense. Mooney, he's not going to see the same target share that he has seen in years past, but he's going to be more efficient with those numbers, and those numbers are going to tend to trend upwards, which speaks highly for a guy who was 18th in route win rate there and 24th in deep receiving grade there, according to PFF. I like this thing. I think this Bears, we talked about the black tip shark being basically more of a docile type shark compared to some of the other ones, but the oceanic white tip, it is one of the more aggressive sharks out there. This Bears offense is going to be one of the more aggressive offenses in the league. They've got an ability to pass the ball now, which we didn't see last season. They're going to be able to run the ball. That's not going to change. Donta Foreman, Rashawn Johnson, Khalil Herbert can all run the ball. Justin Fields, he can run the ball. The oceanic white tip created the term feeding frenzy. and not for the very good reason. There, you go take a look at the the USS Indianapolis bad thing that happened there as far as shark attacks are concerned. But feeding frenzy, this Bears offense is going to be a feeding frenzy here in 2023. Just sit back and enjoy. This is going to be one of the better offenses in the league, and Justin Fields is going to be a top quarterback. Now, heading on to another shark, it's the bull shark. It's a bully out there, one of the most dangerous sharks out there, because you're more than likely to run across this shark than any other shark. The pit bull of the sea. We're talking about a shark that has no problem going in the salt water or in the fresh water here. You can find it every single where you go in the world. It's not going to change a dang thing. So when we look at this, which fantasy players do you feel are going to hurt you more than anyone else this season, Tara?
Before I dive into mine, just shark PSA, guys. The sharks, you don't have to watch the attacks. It doesn't have to be scary. You can.
They're all
be like
smiling.
me.
They're all smiling.
You can be like me, like I said earlier in the show. Going on TikTok and googling, sharks being cute, and watching all the cute shark videos with my son. Hopefully, it doesn't confuse him when he gets to the actual ocean. And he's
That's
like,
what's
"Hey,
gonna
friend."
happen.
Kitty.
Like, why did he rip his arm off? Because he thought it was a cat. Yeah.
It'll help him out. You don't panic when you're around them. You redirect them. That's what the videos tell me. You redirect them. Like, hey, shark, move over.
Okay. Okay. That's how it works.
I'll try it one day with Matt's in the cage, and I'm out there like redirecting the sharks. No, it's not gonna happen. My fantasy player that was gonna hurt me the most. Not me, actually, because I'm not going to draft this player. Who's going to hurt
What?
you guys, unfortunately, the most. It's Breece Hall, sadly. I hate to say it. He's being drafted as RB10. You guys are awful bullish on a guy that we're not entirely sure what kind of health he's going to have to start off the season, and to what degree the Jets are going to push him as well. They'll probably ease him back into action, and you're getting no discount on him. He is being drafted at the 2-3 turn. This is very aggressive. He's being drafted as a top 12 running back coming off a significant injury. We know the upside is fantastic. Give me Breece Hall healthy all day long. I'm not knocking him or the talent. This is not a hater situation. I would fall all over myself drafting him if he were healthy, but we have to be real here. He's on the pup right now, and that doesn't mean that he's going to start the season on the pup, but he very well could. Or it could be a situation where he doesn't go on the pup and he misses just the first couple of games, a la J.K. Dobbins last year. Or it could be a situation where he gets, eased back in with load management, so he's seeing a limited amount of work, and they're using that plethora of running backs that they already have. They don't even need to dip into the free agent market, although they're rumored to possibly be doing that. So Hall is unfortunately at this ADP a potential bust. I don't think it's going to drop. People are still, gung-ho on drafting him because of the upside. And if you draft him and he doesn't see heavy usage early on, by the time he's actually back to a normal workload, you could be on the verge of being eliminated from the fantasy playoffs.
I like the mention of Hall here because he's one of the ones who comes up in a lot of keeper questions that I get asked around the league. Would you keep Breece Hall as a fourth rounder? And they give you some other options here. I'm like, Breece Hall is a fourth rounder. When I do keepers, I want value, and I don't feel that's value. In Dynasty, I think Breece Hall is a number 1, number 2, number 3 running back in the league. He's a top 3 running back in Dynasty. But when we're talking about keeper leagues, if you're getting him for pennies on the dollar and he's coming right where give me Ramondre Stevenson in the 7th round in a keeper league. That way I'm getting a running back who's typically being drafted the 4th with the 7th round pick here. Breece Hall, 3rd, 4th round capital. It doesn't feel like a value. Major, who's going to hurt you?
I'm going to go with Charlie Higbee just because, he hurt my feelings maybe 2 or 3 years ago. He made me lose a lot of money in a championship game. So I'm going to hate him for life. So, and everyone's talking about him now like he's the guy just because there's not that many viable options in LA at the moment. But as we all know, Cooper Kupp is going to get every red zone throw, every touchdown. No one's really giving that much love to Van Jefferson, but I think he's going to have a slight breakout. I think he's going to be all right. You guys are shaking your head because you guys don't know
I
anything
can't do
about
it. I'm
football.
sorry. I'm so sorry.
But with Tyler Higbee, I mean, the last 4 seasons, he's averaging 600 yards a game. He's not even really a touchdown hog. He only has 16 touchdowns in the last 4 seasons, and most of that is due to Cooper Kupp, like taking all the shine out there in LA. So, again, I really don't have nothing against him. I just heard people, talking about Tyler Higbee just a little too much for my liking. I still got a bad taste in my mouth from him. Just like, man, he killed me. But he'll make you think that he's going to give it to. He's gonna do it. He's gonna like have 2 or 3 games where you're like, oh man, and then it's going to fall flat like it does pretty much every season. So, shout out to Tyler Higbee for taking a bite out of my season. Is that how you do it, Matt? Is that how you?
We got to work. I mean, you got the dad hat, but you don't got the dad jokes going on. So
I don't know
I would like
much.
to point out, if we're talking wide receivers, I'm going to tell you, as the Fantasy Pros top 10 expert when it came to ranking wide receivers last season, Van Jefferson, he ain't it. I'm going to tell you right now. I'm going to save you the whole trouble here. That's coming from a top 10 fantasy analyst when it comes to ranking wide receivers. Now,
Let's-
Major, do you know why bull sharks can swim in the ocean and in fresh water? Do you know why?
Because they
I'll save you the time of trying to read my notes here because they're written in Canadian and the verbs and the pronouns and everything are all over the place. Basically, when they're in the ocean, they pee out the salt water, and then when they go into the fresh water, they store the salt water in them, so that they've got that going for them.
Wait, so
that's
they
why
pee out and suck in the same what?
What do you think fish do, man? This is why I don't eat seafood, right? This is exactly why I don't eat seafood, for
This
that
is
whole
why I
reason.
stopped eating seafood today.
Yes, but bull sharks, hey, they're bullish, man. They'll go attack crocodiles, they'll attack hippos. They've got pound for pound one of the biggest bites, even bigger than the great white shark there. So for me, I've always had a big bite. The one guy who's going to hurt me, and it's going to happen, it's going to be Christian Kirk, because I love Kirky so much here. I mean, we have cute nicknames for each other. I call him Kirky. He calls me Maddie. And it's a thing that we have going on here right now. There's probably a reason why I'm not allowed in Duval County. That's probably the reason in itself. That being said, I have him 9 spots higher than his current ADP. That's also about 7 spots higher than where the consensus has it. And rumor is that he's a better wide receiver than Calvin Ridley. That source is me. That's probably where I'm going to get hurt. Let's call it the way it is. Yeah. I got no problem if I'm going to be wrong on this, but his ADP has him as a wide receiver 27, coming off a season in which he was the wide receiver 11. Now, as good as Ridley has looked, and he's looked pretty good in training camp, he hasn't played any meaningful snaps in quite some time. Kirk, he absolutely destroyed man coverage last season, and I hope all this means he's not going to destroy me, because I am so high on him right now that it's going to hurt when it doesn't work out for Kirk. I kind of almost rhymed there a little bit. You can use that saying. Now, one shark that isn't afraid of anything is going to be that tiger shark. I mean, this thing basically eats anything. And I mean anything, from gas tanks to coals to packs of cigarettes. It doesn't matter. It's going to end up in the tiger shark's belly. And once that tiger shark sinks its teeth in you, there's no way to escape that smile. Now, with that in mind, which fantasy option out there have you been trying to eat up on all your rosters? Who's that one player that you had to have?
Fortunately not Christian Kirk. It is Calvin Ridley for me. We'll talk about all those things that Matt was just telling us that we don't like about Calvin Ridley. He finished as wide receiver 5 in PPR back in 2020 with 90 receptions on 143 targets, nearly 1,400 yards and 9 touchdowns. I get it, that was 2020. That is borderline like Michael Thomas delusion of thinking that that's going to come back. But it's a different situation. We're not talking about a guy coming off of injury. I don't think we're setting ourselves up for that same type of disappointment for a guy that's had a long layoff. Again, he's been preparing. This is not an injury situation. And he's had plenty of time to work back to getting to peak form. And if I can trust any coach to get him back there, I'm trusting Doug Peterson as well. I'm willing to bet that this is going to be thank you, Matt. I'm willing to bet that this is going to be the perfect situation for him to reignite his career in Jacksonville. The Jags are a locked in top 10 offense. So when we look at what they did last year, there's no reason for them to regress backwards. We're going to see an improvement on what they did last year and the connections that they made towards the back half of the season. Trevor Lawrence, Doug Peterson, Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, Travis Etienne. This is just a fantastic offense, and I think that Calvin Ridley is going to lead the way.
Well, Major, you know how long ago 2020 was? I actually had hair. So can you talk about a player that's played more recently?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with, like when I think Shark Week, I think like Fish, I think Waddle, like the penguin dance. I need to watch more sharks. I don't know anything about sharks. Sorry. It's the closest thing to the water I can get. So I went with Jaden Waddle. He is the wide receiver 2 on that team because Tyreek Hill, but like he is carving out his own lane, and he is, at this point we could say they have 2 wide receiver 1s. He led the NFL with 18 yards per catch last season. He's been in league for 2 seasons, 2,000-yard seasons. Like, the guy is unbelievable. I think he may have the best routes in the game. He's just one of those guys, one of the fastest guys out there. And I think having Tariq taking the top off the defense there, he can like run those like crossing patterns and underneath stuff and give him a 5-yard catch. He can take it 100. So I'm trying to get Jalen Waddle wherever I go, man, regardless of his position on that team.
You know what? Maybe Tara's right in using Calvin Ridley as a comparison for a tiger shark here, because younger tiger sharks, they have the more prominent stripes. They're basically like a version of frosted tips, so to speak. And the older they get, the more those stripes begin to fade away. So I'm just going to throw that out there right now. So maybe Calvin Ridley is starting to fade. No, I'm not going to go there. Don't quote tweet me on that one or whatever you want to do. I just thought I had to slide that into the equation somehow to prove how much smarter I am than most people when it comes to sharks.
Yeah, I think you might be winning.
Now, like a tiger shark eating just about everything and anything, Amon-Ra St. Brown catches everything thrown his way. You want a dark horse wide receiver who could finish number 1 overall in PPR scoring? It's this guy right here. St. Brown caught 106 of 146 balls thrown in his direction last season, and he did this while missing week 4 against the Seahawks. Yeah, that's right. He missed a game and still came up with 106 receptions. On a target per route run rate there, only Tyreek Hill had a higher target share, greater than St. Brown's 32%. If you are into strength of schedules, then you'll be really into what St. Brown has to offer you, who faces the 11th easiest fantasy strength of schedule for wide receivers. And he's got a favorable matchup with Jameson Williams being absent. Then it gets even more favorable once you hit those fantasy playoffs, which it ranks 7th. Now, fun fact, St. Brown is one of just 3 players with 8+ catches in 8 straight games, and was the first player in NFL history to record a touchdown and have 8 catches in 6 straight games. This is a player I have to have. It doesn't matter what league it is. And you're getting him 2nd round. I think he's going to have the potential in PPR to outscore Jefferson, Kupp, and Jamar Chase. Don't rule it out. It might not look like it right now, but in PPR, Tara, you know as well as anybody, those receptions, they add up quickly. A guy like Jamar Chase, he's sharing with T. Higgins. Justin Jefferson, he's going to have to split those touches with T.J. Hawkinson. The only player right now that Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be sharing receptions with is possibly Jahmyr Gibbs at this moment until Jameson Williams comes back. And at that time, we're still talking about a Detroit Lions offense that was top 5 in the league last season. So I want all the Amon-Ra St. Brown shares that I can get on my roster. There's no doubt about it. Now we get into the alpha predator, if you will, the great white shark. Who is that one player that is going to win you fantasy championships, potentially single-handedly? Now, the one thing the great white shark fears is going to be talking about a little bit later, but he could also fear those Justin Jefferson shares when it comes to the fantasy playoffs. But anyway, Tara, who is that one player who's going to finish maybe number 1 overall in fantasy?
So it didn't seem like the goal was to get the number 1 player in fantasy. Um, the phrasing, my people
The
out there,
Riddler.
my people out there listening, the phrasing was player that is going to win your fantasy championships. And fantasy managers know that potential league winning players are not the ones that you draft in the first round. They're your mid round picks that pan out and jump dramatically up over their ADP. So, with that said, where I chose to go was not with one of the most obvious players to potentially finish up there. I went with Christian Watson. I don't think we have to dive into it super deep because we have talked about Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, Jordan Love like ad nauseum on this show. But Christian Watson has like massive league winning upside. A lot of people, aren't really grasping the true upside that he has. We saw it live. This is not, conjecture of what we think could theoretically happen. We saw it in 2022, and we don't need to discount it because Christian Watson was wide receiver 9 in the back half of the season, weeks 10 through 18, averaging 17.4 fantasy points per game. And then he had that, wedged in there, that fantastic 4-game stretch where he was the wide receiver 3, averaging nearly 25 fantasy points per game. Typically those types of numbers, that's going to get you into a Garrett Wilson kind of situation where you're being drafted, coming off of a breakout rookie season as a top 12 wide receiver. That's not happening with Christian Watson because people are skeptical of the Packers offense, but Christian Watson has that massive upside and that capability. We know he can take the top off of an offense. We know he can absolutely dominate and win you single-handedly weeks. And, despite the skepticism around quarterback, people don't need to be afraid of Christian Watson in the way that they are. This is a team that, while they may not be fantastic offensively, they're still going to be able to produce some weapons that are worthy of drafts and draft picks and have high upside. And Christian Watson is one of those people.
All right, Major, how do you interpret it?
I interpret it as great white shark, and I want the greatest white skill player of all time, and that's Cooper Kupp. in 2021,
Insert sound.
in 2021, the dude almost had 2,000 yards. He was only 53 yards short of that. In 2022, in just 9 games, he had 75 catches for 812 yards. I'm not reading all the rest of this crap. Let's see. Matthew Stafford's healthy now. 2023, they're doing little breakfast dates again, and there's no one else in that offense who's really gonna offer up anything on that offense. So again, I said Van's gonna eat a little bit just because Cooper is gonna get tired eventually. I would think he needs to take a break every now and then, but shout out to the greatest white player of all time, and he's right up there and he's going to do his thing. And again, he's the only option at offense. So he's going to eat like all the sharks do on Shark Week. Did I do it that time?
It's getting better. I mean, it was better than the first attempt. Now, for me, when I look at the great white, it is that alpha predator. Sharks, they attack, they strike without warning. They do it with a smile on their face. And that is key to remember, kids. The shark is smiling right now. But they can even do this in plain sight. The great white, it's equipped. That gray background, it kind of blends in with the bottom of the ocean. The white belly helps to blend in with the sunlight if you're looking up. So they can attack you from the top. They can attack you from the bottom right there in front of you. And the guy that I think about that does that with speed and power and everything, this is a case for Tyreek Hill. Now, remember, Tyreek Hill put over 1,100 receiving yards in the first 9 games last season. He was basically on pace for that elusive 2,000-yard milestone. What happened? Teddy Bridgewater and Skylar Thompson. That is what happened. Tua Tagovailoa having some worrisome injuries there. That cost him some time. Now, despite all that, Hill still finished with 1,700 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns, averaged 14.4 yards per attempt. Now, like most Sharks, the ecosystem has to stay intact for Hill to be the first 2,000-yard receiver that we've ever had. Now, Jordan Vanek there over at the 33rd team there had a great poll. Since 2008, there have been 8 quarterback pass catching duos there, averaging over 3 yards per attempt on per route basis there. But only Tua Tagovailoa was able to support 2 receivers at the same time. And looking at some of those other Tua metrics, can we make Tua metrics an actual thing here? I think so. Let's go. Tua metrics, deep passing ranking, first in completion percentage, 54.5%. Fourth in yards, 990. Again, in just 13 games. Sixth in touchdowns, 10. His 124.1 quarterback rating was tops. His PFF passer grade of 94.4 was fourth. Now Tyreek Hill's off the field concerns, they have been resolved. So now he can focus on the field. If that focus is on the field, if the ecosystem is right, if Tua Tagovailoa stays healthy, Tyreek Hill is going to top 2,000 yards. He has the best shot of this of all the wide receivers that we've talked about, including Amon St. Brown, Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. If that ecosystem stays intact, that's right, Tua Tagovailoa has to stay healthy for this to occur. And that is probably something it's like humans. You can't trust humans. You can't really trust the injury thing as being your end all for when you talk about your fantasy takes, but that is something that I think is very plausible in fantasy. So it's something to keep in mind, and that's why he's my great white shark. Now, the one thing the great white shark fears is the killer whale. Killer whales, they aren't even sharks. They're not even whales. They're dolphins. They're giant dolphins. So, I mean, maybe Tyreek Hill should have been the killer whale because it's a dolphin. And kind of going along what you said there a little bit earlier, Major. That said, they are the ultimate predator when it comes to the ocean. But guess what? They hunt in packs. You'll watch 2 or 3 orca whales take out a great white shark. They force it up to the surface, and they basically play bully ball with it and bounce it around and take it out. What's one of those fantasies that are built right now? When you look at the rosters, let's talk about stacks upon stacks here. We look at these things. We need a stack. Tara, what's that stack that you're going to go with to take out the great white whale, the great white shark?
I will state the obvious, but I am going to throw a curveball. The obvious stack
As
is Patrick
always.
Mahomes and Travis Kelce. But I will throw the
obvious.
curveball and say that you can stack Patrick Mahomes, and if you can't get Travis Kelce, because obviously you need to take him super early in the first round this year to do so, get yourself some Sky Moore. Shout out to Kadarius Toney, really, for just ruining Sky Moore's super status. Because now everybody is gonna want him because nobody is wanting, bad knee Kadarius Toney again. Actually, Matt, don't include this part. We're not shouting out Kadarius Toney because he likes to tussle in the tweets and fight you in the DMs. So exclude this part right here. I don't want to fight with you, Kadarius Toney. Please don't fight me. But I wish that she had just stayed healthy a little bit longer and done this maybe once we were in finally out of draft season, unfortunately, because I'm 100% buying into the Sky Moore camp hype. I just think he needed a developmental year. Not everyone can make that leap from a small program to the NFL. Some people need to work on fine-tuning, learning, improving routes, and it sounds like he's done all of that. We've heard nothing but glowing reports out of Chiefs, OTAs, and training camps around Sky Moore. He's going to be able to play all over the field. They can also see him fulfilling that role that Juju Smith-Schuster left. So it sounds like they want to have him as an integral part to this Chiefs offense, which is very different from last year where he, his main struggle was he just wasn't really put onto the field. So it's not that he didn't succeed, he didn't have the talent to, he just never had the opportunity because Andy Reid just needed him to develop a little bit more before he gave him that opportunity, and I think it's coming this year. So if you can grab Sky Moore, do so. Unfortunately, I think that ADP is about to rise, so I hope you got him already in your early drafts and your best ball drafts, because, yeah, thanks, Kadarius Toney.
All right, Major, this next stack here has a couple players that we've talked about throughout the show. In fact, there's at least 3 players that we've talked about. Who do you got?
I'm going to go down to Duval County and do the stacks of all stacks. I'm going to just go out and say I think this is the most talented offense in the league right now. You have Trevor Lawrence at quarterback. Travis Etienne at running back. Calvin Ridley coming back. He's looking good in camp. Mr. Consistent, Christian Kirk. And then your wide receiver 3 is Zay Jones, which last year to me, I felt like he was actually probably the best receiver on that team during that last stretch. And then Evan Ingram actually kind of woke up a little bit, and he's out there balling now. So I think if you just kind of pick all these people on one team, that'd be the ultimate stack. Yes, no.
I don't hate it. I mean, I think you get a good value out of that Jacksonville Jaguar stack. I think you get good value on it because those players you're getting a little bit later than maybe some other stacks, like Tara mentioned, the Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes. You're going to be looking around 1, round 2, if you're lucky, if you want to stack those 2 guys up. Now, when I think of stacks, when I think of killer whales, the killer whale is cerebral. It attacks in a very meticulous type way. They've been known to hunt in pods of up to 40. So I'm not going to go with a stack of 40 here, but I'm going to go with one of the best stacks in the league last season. And that is this Philadelphia Eagles offense that featured the quarterback 3 last season as far as fantasy is concerned. They also had the RB13 of Miles Sanders, who just happened to be 5th in rushing. And if you're looking into half-point PPR, like I like over PPR, Miles Sanders was 11th. They also had the wide receiver 5, the wide receiver 9 in Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. They also had the tight end 12 there in Dallas Goedert, who happened to miss 5 games. The best part about this whole offense, unlike the Chiefs stack with Mahomes and Kelce, is you could stack them at a decent cost. Even if you miss out on A.J. Brown, you get similar production from Devontae Smith with an ADP of 29. So you could draft Hurts in the 2nd, maybe Smith in the 3rd, come back in Dallas Goedert there in the 5th, with an ADP of 69, then finish off the super stack. Keep on stacking them with DeAndre Swift, who's going as the RB24 with an ADP of 61, or Rashad Penny, who's the RB40 with an ADP of 104. This Philadelphia Eagles offense was 9th in passing, averaging 232.9 yards per game, 5th in rushing, averaging 147.6 yards per game. They were 2nd in scoring, averaging 29.1 points per game. There is fantasy production up and down this Eagles lineup. So this is one of maybe of a couple teams in the entire league that could support a super stack going on. And it's still hard to believe that Howie Roseman there got both Rashad Penny there and DeAndre Swift under contract for a fraction of what it would have cost to keep Miles Sanders via free agency. They also have some health concerns there. I mean, Penny and Swift, so take it as you will. But if either one of these guys can stay healthy, look out, because DeAndre Swift can absolutely take over a backfield with his skill set as a pass catcher, even though the Eagles don't really like to throw to their backs. And Rashad Penny, put some respect on this man's name. He is one of the most efficient runners in the entire National Football League. He proved efficiency behind one of the worst offensive lines there in Seattle, and now he's coming to arguably the best offensive line. I mean, I don't even think Miles Sanders was getting touched until he was 2 yards into his runs last season. If you give Rashad Penny 2 yards cushion there before contact, the dude's going to break off 50-yard runs consistently. And that right there has league-winning upside as long as he can stay healthy. And again, like some other players we've talked about, I don't really want to trust one's health with my fantasy lineups. But hey, if you're stacking and you get Penny as a RB, 5 right now? I mean, that's some pretty good value sticking to your lineups. Now, Major, last word for you on Shark Week.
It was a lot of fun taking a bite out of this show with you guys. It was good swimming through the chum with you chums.
All right, that's a little bit better. I mean, that's try to give him one more shot, Tara. What do you got? What's happening?
Again, I'll do the shark propaganda of sharks can be your friends, and you don't have to think of sharks as scary type. Gotta bite you, take off your limbs. Sharks can be friendly.
Bad
Sharks
advice.
can be your friends. So watch happy shark videos with your kids before they go to sleep. Put them right
Just
to
like
bed.
Tara
Sweet
takes
dreams.
on fantasy football. Just bad advice all the way around.
Fantastic advice. Fantastic advice. My kid sleeps right through the night.
Well, if you haven't been able to tell, Tara needs some sleep right now herself. So I will leave you with this last little bit here as we head into Shark Week here and headed into the 2023 NFL fantasy season.